Glenlivet 14-year cognac cask. Not Kanye West, but cognac cask. All right. I also have, I know that we've got a couple of questions here, but one of the questions that continue to come up was this question about
to get a gun is a federal crime. To learn.
Oh, are we okay?
Yes.
All right. So, and you know what? I better mute my laptop so that nothing else comes through. I think that's what I was hearing. So we've had quite a discussion about toll houses, and so I just wanted to provide a little bit more information on that. Again, we don't spend any time in seminary really talking about them, but I thought a little bit of discussion on that might be helpful. What I had said over the last couple of episodes was that this is something that was developed by Seraphim Rose, and actually to correct that statement now, the idea, the concept of a toll house goes back to the early church, even to the patristic fathers, and so many of the patristic fathers spoke of this, but it ended up that they did not support it in any of the ecumenical councils. It never really gained any traction because it had this very Gnostic flavor to it. And the other thing that wasn't popular was the fact that this focus on now the terror of having to pass, your soul having to pass through these toll houses, took away from the salvific work that Jesus Christ has done for us. So because it shifted from that, the fathers of the church kind of dropped it. I don't want to say they rejected it, but they dropped it. Okay, and in fact, there is a very interesting story, and again, because of Terry's Scottish-Irish lineage, I had to read this because this is taken from the life of Saint Columba. I'm going to read it here. Who was one of the founding monks on the island of Iona in Scotland. And one of his monks was dying on the island, and Saint Columba, recorded by one of his proteges, talks about where Columba was with him almost to the point of death. And when he saw Columba after he came out from the monk passing away, he had this beautiful expression on his face. And so the monk asked him, he says, well, why do you have this expression? And he says, because what I have seen at this moment is the holy angels contending in the air against the hostile powers. And I return thanks to Christ the judge, because the victorious angels carried off our brother. So he speaks of this idea of now and you can see my cat walking by here, and he speaks of this idea of the toll houses. The last thing that I want to talk about, and again, I think, can they see this book?
Yes.
That viewable?
It's in focus. Yep, we're good.
Oh, wait a minute now. Sorry. And Demos, you can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, and is that book viewable?
It was. Hold it up again, please.
Okay, all right. Okay, I don't see me anymore.
It's all right. We can see you. That's the important thing.
You can see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see this. I don't know if this book is printed in English. This is Metropolitan of Nakbafto in Saint Hierosimos, I believe. And the book is entitled Zoe Metato Thanato, which is life after death. The last chapter of the book, the very last chapter of the book, speaks of Iato Telonia. Now, Telonia is the Greek word for the toll house, the idea of the toll house. Okay, and in it, he says, so, η πατρική διδασκαλία περί των τελωνίων πρέπει να ερμηνείται μέσα από το 6-4 σημεία. Translated, that means that the 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 writings of the Holy Fathers, the teachings of the Holy Fathers concerning the toll houses should be then examined or understood under these four signs or these four symbols. And the third one is, for me, the most important concerning this idea of toll houses. So in the third one, so he says, οι δαιμόνες δεν έχουν καμιά εξουσία πάντως στους ανθρώπους του Θεού. So here he's saying that we have to understand that the demons have no power over the people of God. Okay? Και όσοι είναι ενωμένοι με το Θεό, those who are joined in union to God, και μέσα στην ψυχή και την καρδία έχουν άκτηση ενεργεία του Θεού. And those that are in the body of Christ and in their heart have with them the uncreated energy of God. Δεν μπορούν να εξουσιαστούν από τους δαίμονες. So with this uncreated energy in their soul, they cannot now, the demons can have no power over them. Έτσι, οι θεωμένοι δεν θα περάσουν από το λεγόμενο τελώνια. Okay? So, θεωμένοι, those who are with God, these who are with God, so they can then pass through this now idea of the toll houses. And that's really what we need to understand about this, is that the demons have no power over us. And this idea of this balancing of speaking of your sins, and then dragging you into hell, but the angel's speaking for you, this smacks way too much now of this idea of works and denies then the power of God. So I wanted to offer those 2 points on this. Again, really, really good book. Like I said, I don't know if it's in English yet. All right. So I took up some time with that. So let's go ahead and get started.
Well, we have a question from last week that I promised Thomas Hamilton will get back to this week. And the question is, how long do you suppose we'll enter full communion with the Patriarch, Pope of Rome? If ever, where do we expect them to compromise? And how much should we compromise for the sake of Christian unity?
So let's get to the first part of the question, because we've had this question before, and it's a very important question. Every single liturgy, every single Sunday, both the Orthodox and Catholic Church say the creed, and it says, and it says in there, one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, one universal church. This is what we pray for. So there is an expectation that Christ's will be done. Now, when will that will be done? Okay, that's a good question. With the way that the dialogue is going right now, and with this, with the work that has been done at Holy Cross, our Greek Orthodox seminary, together with the Catholic bishops, where they meet every other year to discuss these matters, I see us getting closer and closer, and I was able to personally witness some of that when I was at the seminary. So I see it as generationally close. So that means I don't think it's going to happen in 10 years or 20 years, but I think generationally, within 2 to 3 generations, there is going to be, at least here in America, a massive push now to bring the two churches together. Why do I say that? Because in the 3 parishes that I have served, I have seen a large percentage of Orthodox Catholic families. They are those now who don't necessarily want to convert to Orthodoxy. That used to be the old idea, and the same like what happened with Presbytera and I. You're not Orthodox, why don't you become Orthodox? You can raise your child in one religion, one expression of Christianity. I'm not saying that's wrong, but what I am seeing now in my own ministry are now the Catholic part of the union, the marriage union, saying, I wish to remain Catholic. And so it causes a degree of separation in the family because of the idea of communion. And I think America will be that organic groundswell that will then push this further into existence. It's really not going to happen in Russia because it's mostly Orthodox. It's not going to happen in South America because it's mostly Catholic. It's not necessarily going to happen in Europe, okay, because that's mostly Protestant. All right. So America is this true melting pot where we have these two families. So I think that we're only generationally away from this idea. Now, the second part of that, Demos, is...
Well, the second part was more about the compromise. What do we have to give up? What do they have to get up to achieve the Christian unity?
So the major stumbling block here for the church is going to be number one, that the Roman Catholic Church is going to have to abolish the title of Pope, and this idea that this ex cathedra idea that a single person can speak universally. All right. So this very literal expression of, I have given to you, Peter, the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And to move to what we would call in the Orthodox Church a synodal form of ecclesiastical governing, which is what we have. With that concession by the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church would revert to her original position, which is now second after Rome. So the Pope, which would then take his title as the Patriarch of Rome, would be the first among equals. The Patriarch of Constantinople would step back and be the second, and then they would join us, all of us, then in a synodal relationship. When that happens, the other small points that are being discussed right now, which many of which have fallen away now, will be overcome, and that will be then when the true impetus will be of us then getting together. But like I said, on one hand, it's the Patriarch of Rome relinquishing the title of Pope and one person, and then the Orthodox Church then saying we will then step back into the second position and not be, as Patriarch Bartholomew now is known as, the first among equals.
Aaron was here very early with a question. Hello, Father. My question is there a particular way that icon corners should be set up at home? What should we have, not have? Where in the house should it be, etc.? Thank you and God bless.
So the iconostasis, or the icon corner of the house, great question, because, every Orthodox home should have a place where prayers can be offered. The iconostasis that we Presbyterian and I have is literally right at our door, so the exit door. So as we leave, the very last thing that we do is we are reminded of Christ, and then we have it there that we can kiss the icon. So ours is fairly simple. Here comes, you have to move on now. All right, there you go. All right, so you'll get to see the cat now. Since we're home, you get to see the cat on a regular basis.
You have a sidekick.
I have right. That's my superpower sidekick. Exactly right. There we go. So what should an iconostasis have? Okay, it certainly should have then an icon, and that icon should certainly have Christ there as the focal point, as the center point. If that icon has Christ together with the Theotokos, that's even more beautiful. And then surrounding that can be saints that are important to you and your family. So, for example, myself being Evangelist, I would have we have an icon of now the Annunciation, and Terry is Eleftheria, so she has Saint Eleftherios, and because we love to cook, we have Saint Ephrosynos that is hanging up in our kitchen. So it should have those saints that you also ask to pray also on your behalf too. And then the ladder. Oh, yes. And then St. John Climacus is the ladder, Presbytera says, is to remind us that we're always striving to move up the ladder and the difficulty of that ladder and what striving in a Christian life is all about. Then in addition to that, some people will have then a little candili that they'll light, a little candle. Some of it is just a regular candle. The other people have the oil with the candle, that the wick that floats in there. And then lastly, they might have what we call a themiasterion, which is just a little incense holder, so that during the times of prayers they can light the incense, and it just has this beautiful this beautiful fragrance that emits through the house. So again, certainly, and any place in the house where you typically say your prayers. Sometimes it's the bedroom, and then other times it may be the library in your room. It's probably not going to be in the living room because it's just way too busy. It should be something where a little bit more private. As Christ said, and when you pray to your Father in secret, then your Father in secret will also then bless you. So someplace that's a little bit more private.
So we got a few shout outs for Kanye West. Apparently, Amon says a very good one mentioning Kanye West, and Chunk Yogurt says that Kanye sent me here. So we have the theme for the evening. Last week it was Soul Houses. This week it's help us, Kanye West.
That's, I don't know what Orthodox things I can add to that.
Oh, maybe in the future it might end up with Saint West. That would be interesting.
That's right. Well, Cat Stevens was Orthodox, so hey.
There we go. Medieval Guitars back. I love that name. Good evening,
all right,
Father.
Medieval Guitar, there he is.
Some at church, but not all, venerate icons on the iconostasis. Is this a common practice, and is there a particular way of doing it? Thank you.
Okay, let's start off first. Any reverencing of the icon is a beautiful thing. So let's just start there. And I have no issue with that, but the church frowns upon public displays of piety, because then, as Christ said about the Pharisees, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, because you like to parade yourselves and make your tassels long and all that." Okay, so if somebody is during the week comes into the church and they say their prayers, it is very convenient for them to go up to the iconostasis and to reverence the icons there and to kiss those icons that are there. Okay, nobody has a problem with that. The church has no problem with that. But a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot, but oftentimes what I will see is people that during a service will then do that, okay? And sometimes that's done with the idea of, see what I am doing here and how pious I am. Because there are icons all over an Orthodox church. So you can go into the narthex and the icons of the day are there, and you can go and reverence those. So we have to be cautious about, why are we kissing the icon or reverencing the icon at that particular time, and making sure that we are doing it in a very pious manner that is not disruptive then to other people. Now, the second question of where should the icon be kissed? Again, the way that we were taught in the seminary and the way that I was taught by the bishop, and I know I got some comments about this, but I'm going to repeat it again, is that the icon is typically kissed at the lowest point. So if it's an icon of a full person, it is typically kissed, again, for reverence purposes, it is kissed at the lowest point, which would then be, if the feet are shown, it would be kissed at the feet. If it's not, then whatever that lowest point is, okay? And I know that our bishop has mentioned to us that if there is an icon of multiple saints, than that it is an event that is being celebrated. The synaxis of the 70 apostles, or the synaxis of the archangels, or of the collection, like we have the collection of the saints of Scotland. All right, it is a singular event, and from that, the bishop says, reverence the icon one time. Now, nobody's going to say anything if you kiss every saint that is on the icon, but that is not necessary to be done. It is a singular event and then is reverenced as that singular event.
Tamer has a statement for us. Father,
Hi, how we doing?
I'm actually heading out. I am keeping you and the faithful community of Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church in my prayers. I'm giving a talk on the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom tonight.
Wow, that is very, very impressive. Can I ask where that lecture is going to be done? Like at a university, at a church, can I ask where you're doing that?
If they haven't already headed out, I'll keep an eye on the comments.
Great. Okay. Congratulations, Tamara.
Blaze Mordley is in. My question is probably laughable to you. There's no such thing as a good or bad question other than, is this cliff too high to jump? How or why does the Orthodox Church call Michael the Archangel Saint Michael the Archangel? How does that work? How or why does the Orthodox Church call Michael the Archangel, Saint Michael the Archangel? So why is he called Saint?
Well, that would be okay. No. He said saint. He's not a saint. He is one of the heavenly powers. Saint is typically reserved for those who had a body, who were, I don't want to say created because angels are created, but those people that had a mortal body and then were martyred for Christ and then received that sainthood. There is no sainthood for an archangel to receive. So what I want to look up here is if that is printed on an icon, that Saint Michael. And let's see here, Michael. Now there are, there are saints who are Michael, but in this case, I think Blaise is talking about an actual, it's called St. Michael Archangel's Church. And typically we do not use that connotation. So I think I've got another research question to see why they would refer, because we would just say Archangel Michael or Archangel Gabriel or Archangel Raphael. So that is something then that I would need to research to find out why do we put the saint in front of there, because again, they're already in the presence of God and created for a specific purpose as a principality.
Apparently, icons are the theme for tonight, because Teresa has a question. Does it matter what part of the house the icon corner is? I do believe we answered that a little bit earlier. Father, you said you had it near the front of your house, but overall, it doesn't really matter where it is?
Well, like I said, I do want to repeat, it should be in a place where it would create an atmosphere for prayer. So, putting it in the living room is probably not gonna work that well, because that's where the center of activity is, and it wouldn't be then a place that could possibly inhibit prayer. So there's no room that it must be in, but normally it's in a room that will create a prayerful environment, and that's why bedrooms, libraries, dens, things like that are more used than to put their icon corner in.
Lenny is in with a question. Aios, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Aios nectarios. My mother brought it with her from Greece to Montreal in the 60s. It's important to her that we pray to this Ayo. Are you familiar with this saint, Father?
Ios Nectarios?
Yes.
Absolutely. And in fact, I traveled to Egia, where Saint Nectarios is buried, and he established a nunnery there and a monastery for Orthodox women on Egina, and saw his tomb there. Saint Nectarios is the patron saint for cancer, and he is also a recent saint. So he is actually a 20th century saint. So this gives us this connection with sainthood that is within our own time. So it's not like, St. John Chrysostom, where this is like 1700 years ago, or St. Simeon, the new theologian, where it's 1,000 years ago or 800 years ago, and they're out of mind. This is a present day saint that we have memory of, that we have recordings of, that we know about him. And so he again was famous for people going to him and then him curing cancer. And he has an above ground crypt on Egina there where he is. And I went to go see that with a couple of my friends. And it's interesting that when you go there, if you put your ear to his sarcophagus there, it's all marble. You can actually hear the tapping of his bishop's staff. It's very, very. It's. I don't want to say eerie. It's just something very, very beautiful. And the whole area that is around his tomb is beautifully fragrant. It's just got this lovely smell of flowers when you get near it. There's just absolutely no doubt. And in the Orthodox Church, a fragrant smell, a flower smell, is one of the symbols of divinity. Is that you can tell that some action or some vision or some dream actually was divine, is with that fragrance, and you can smell that when you go there.
We do have a follow-up question once again about icons. Specifically, do they have to be facing in a certain direction or way?
No. I know this question is going, do they have to face to the east or anything like that? Mm-hmm. The only requirement that I know of, that I'm aware of within the church, is that when the church is built, then the altar must face east. Okay, I have never been in a church where the altar faces east. So they build churches the best way that they can. I mean, you have to do what you have to do. The Orthodox Church says when it is possible, the altar should face to the east, because again, we want to be able to see now the risen Christ when he comes. Okay, so there's the meaning behind that, but there's nothing that says that an icon has to face a particular way. Again, the icon is there as a window to that saint. And so from that perspective, the icon is for you. It's not necessarily, it's not necessarily a thing on its own. Once it becomes an object of worship, now we have crossed over into heresy. So we have to be careful what the icon is, because remember, our Orthodox history has the monks taking the icons away from us because we abuse them. Okay, and then Empress Theodora restored them because we quote unquote promised that, as we read on Sunday of Orthodoxy, we have where it was read at the gates of what the purpose of and how icons should be venerated. So we have to be very, very careful and not cross that line into heresy.
Well, I guess we can have it doubly in the bag at Annunciation, because we're literally facing East Avenue. The church.
Yeah, well, yeah, but does the altar? So East Avenue, the altar faces opposite from East Avenue, right?
Yeah, but it's literally facing East Avenue. So.
Oh yes, okay, gotcha. Yes, yeah, I got it now. We'll go on the uptake there.
I hope I'm pronouncing this name correctly. Arjan Odam. Hello, Father. My question: how should I inform my parents that I'd like to visit an Orthodox church? We are non-denominational. I'm not really sure how to approach them about it. Approach them about things like veneration.
Okay, so my advice: take things slowly. Take things slowly. Do not make this do not make this a conversion conversation. Um, the first part of it is because I've had this situation many times. The first part is I'd like to go and visit this church. It is a Christian church. It is a Christian church, and I want to go see it and leave it at that. Nothing more. There's no theology required there. It's something that you want to go do. Okay. There should never, and I even have that in my church, in all of the parishes that I've been. I encourage people to go and visit other faiths so that you can understand what perspective they're coming from. There is nothing wrong in going to a mosque, and there's nothing wrong with going to a synagogue, and there's nothing wrong with going to a non-denominational church or an Orthodox or Catholic church. So it has to be approached in that perspective. I want to see another expression of Christianity. There should be no fear in that whatsoever. That doesn't mean that, and your parents shouldn't take that view as that this is going to become a conversion event. And certainly I would steer clear of situations where the priest would be looking for that instant conversion. Instead, the priest should be welcoming and should say, welcome. This is an Orthodox church. I'm glad that you're here. And, if you'd like me to, I can explain some things to you. But if not, take your time and then look around. And so in that sense, there's absolutely nothing to fear. But again, don't make it complicated. I'm going to visit another Christian church because I'm interested. And there should be no fear in that. And then as you become more exposed to the Orthodox Church, assuming that you like it, now you can begin to engage your parents in a discussion. Well, what did you see when you went there? Well, I saw icons. Icons? What are icons? Well, the way it's explained to me, an icon is X, So make sure that you understand what is the Orthodox meaning behind what we do. Because again, it is very intimidating to go into an Orthodox church because there's just so much going on. So, let them ask questions of you, and then you just respond back as you start to learn about the Orthodox faith. And just make it clear to your parents that going to the church does not mean that this will result in a conversion event.
Jeff Abel has a response to the earlier question about church unity.
Okay, Jeff. Father Christopher.
But the consideration of the papacy in the hierarchy is the major tipping point in our discussions. The primary descendant of Peter is the Pope in the Roman Catholic Church, while every bishop is a descendant of Peter in the Orthodox Church. The Orthodox works in council.
Yes, which is what I said. We have a synodal form of ecclesiastical government, right? So syn odos. So syn together, odos is a way or a path. So synod or synod is a one path together. And in order to use the word together, then it means that there has to be more than one person. So Jeff is absolutely right. We are a conciliary church, but I like to use the term that the church uses, which is synodal. All our decisions are made synodally. And those decisions made synodally are infallible, as opposed to in the Catholic Church. And again, I'm not saying that the Pope just wakes up and decides he's going to say something, but after he talks with his and receives counsel from his college of cardinals, he is the one who will speak ex cathedra and make that dogmatic statement that becomes then infallible.
Now, before we move on, I do want to point out sometimes the questions or your comments may not appear on the screen. So if anybody ever sees a question that is skipped for a long time, and it's not being asked, please resend the question so we don't miss it. Speaking of questions, Jerry has one. Hello, Father. Thank you for taking the time to do this weekly.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for everybody tuning in.
Here is my question. In Orthodoxy, what is the belief about Jesus going to hell? My confusion is, if Hades isn't the eternal hell, why do people think he went there? Thank you.
So there is, again, a confusion regarding the terms hell, Gehenna, Adi, Hades, and Sheol. Okay, the Hebrew term. So Sheol is this place of sleep. All right. There is not a Greek equivalent to that. So there had to be some kind of word. Okay. So the term that came out was either golasi or adi. Okay, these two terms are used in the New Testament Gospels, to represent now this place of sleep. And we call a cemetery a cimitirio, and kimame is then to sleep. All right. So in that, we just have to remember that there is some confusion about the direct translation of Hebrew terms. Now, since Jesus now was, as the Son of God, redeemed everyone, then that redemption had to extend to those who existed then before Jesus' coming. So Jesus now descends into Sheol, which we would call hell or Hades, and then offers salvation to those who were there. That's why the beautiful Orthodox resurrectional icon has Jesus standing on the tomb, on the cross, and then with one hand pulling Adam and with the other hand pulling Eve, showing now that he is the Savior of the living and of the dead. And so he has gone down into now Hades or Sheol to offer salvation to those who were before now the coming of Christ, and obviously offers to us who are after him then that free grace or that salvation.
Eleni asks, I was raised to dress appropriately in church. Dressy.
Okay.
However, whenever I'm traveling, many attend in shorts and beach sandals. The important thing is attendance for me. Does attire really matter?
Well, it does. It does, because there is a certain expectation of effort on the part of God's creation. And I think what has happened is that we have been lulled into, and at least in America, we have been lulled into this sense of come as you are. Now, where I equate this to is that if we were to go, when I was growing up, to go have dinner at the home of one of my dad's supervisors or one of my dad's bosses, and I said to my dad, "Hey, you know what? I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts." My dad would smack me up the side of the head and say, "No, this is not how you're going to represent me. I've dressed up nicely. You're going to dress up nicely, and we're going to show our respect." If we are entering into the house of the Lord where Jesus is physically present in the communion, physically present, and we don't have enough respect to at least dress nicely. Nicely doesn't mean a suit and tie. It doesn't mean an evening gown. It doesn't mean getting all fancy. But what it does mean is to be respectable in the house of God. And it requires effort on our part. Now, I know that in in some non-denominational settings, that doesn't ring very well. But in an Orthodox church, we are expected that we will show God the very same respect that we would show anybody else of importance. And so if we were invited to a senator's house or a governor's house or the president's house, and we showed up in beach sandals and a sleeveless T-shirt, I think that the president would take a second look at us and say, you couldn't even respect me enough to wear something nice. So again, it's not about trying to impress other people. It is showing respect for the house of God, where Jesus Christ is physically present.
Lenny also had a follow-up for the earlier question from Arjan about visiting the Orthodox Church. She says, if you're a minor, listen to your parents. If you're not a minor, go to an Orthodox church. Now, at the same time, would it be a bad thing if a minor were to ask their parents to visit a different church as well?
I 100% support that. But I totally support that minor, putting some pressure on the parent and saying, I want to visit this church. There shouldn't be any reason why a parent would not want to expose their child to expressions of worshiping of God, because nobody has the exclusive grace of God, as now the gospels tell us, and the Spirit blows where it will. So we should never, in any case, restrict anybody from seeing how God is worshipped in all places of His dominion. So I would be even stronger than that. If they're a minor, you're right. I don't say disobey your parents, but I'm saying that child, if they want to go see it, they should push for that, and they should say, I want to go to the church. I want you to take me to the church. And they should be able to provide a reason why they can't visit an Orthodox church, a Catholic church, a synagogue, whatever that is. And it would certainly be better under the parents' guidance and tutelage.
I mean, if they're showing interest, that's primarily a good thing.
That's a great thing, that they want to learn.
I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly. Eamon has a question. Hi, Father. It's Eamon from Vancouver.
Vancouver, right.
He hopes that you're well. And the question is it okay for an Orthodox Christian to support a political party that officially supports abortion and homosexual marriages?
Oh, wow. So the Orthodox position on that would be, we could not support that. Okay, in those you said gay marriage, correct?
A gay marriage and abortion.
Right. On those 2 points, the Orthodox Church at the present time is very clear on both of those, that those are untenable positions for the church. But that does not exclude us from reasonable dialogue with those people or those congregations, because we are called by Christ to go and teach all that I have taught you to all nations. So it is our responsibility to be evangelical. All right. So as much as we cannot say that we can support those positions, nor can we negotiate those positions, that does not relinquish our responsibility and obligation to engage in those discussions, to find out, to hopefully, and that sway is not the right word, but to uncover what are the harmful spiritual and physical problems associated than with those right now. And again, this is not to, this is not to say that a gay lifestyle is problematic. I know that there's all kinds of discussions that we can have there, but we're talking about gay marriage right now, and right now this is not something that the Orthodox Church is supporting. But again, that doesn't mean that we should not continue to engage in loving dialogue with those communities.
Betty Christopher has a question. What is the Orthodox belief on cremation?
Okay. Well, there's another one where simple answer, very long discussion. But right now, the answer to that is no. An Orthodox Christian, if they choose to be cremated, are not entitled to receive an Orthodox funeral service, nor can they receive then an Orthodox memorial service, the 40 days, the 1 year, the Goliva, things like that. Okay, so that would exclude them from those things. Now, we're talking about willful cremation, not dying in a fire or a blaze in a car, or something like that. We're talking about willful cremation. All right, and typically the church has three reasons for that. Number one, everywhere in the gospel, the act of cremation is used to denigrate the body. It is not done as it done by the American Indians or by the Indians of India or the Norse, where it's done in a very respectful and noble manner. In Scripture, it is always done as an affront and an insult to the body, number one. Okay, so we don't have any evidence where cremation is used in a positive sense. Number two, St. Paul says, do you not know that your body is the temple of God? And so we don't have the right then to make that decision. That's really the root of the abortion question also, is that do you not know that your body is the temple of God? So that it's not just your body, but it's now, it has that life. So that's where that argument stems from too, for abortion and for cremation. And then number three, for those of you that have not witnessed it, and I have, cremation is not just, somebody goes into an oven and then they, like you see on the war movies, and then they come out and they're nothing. No, there are many parts of the body, the bones, that do not break down in the fire, and so in order to get those, in order to make that into dust, the remaining large bones like the femur, the skull, things like that, are placed into what I can only describe as a massive garbage disposal that grinds these up. It is a very disrespectful process to the body. Okay? And so those are the three main reasons why the church at this point rejects cremation. Because again, we need, and then fourthly, I would say that the church also requires that we have a body that we can return to. And I know the argument for this, well, he's God, he can do whatever he wants. But again, remember, it's always a synergia. It's always a working together between God and us. And God asks us, that we treat his body as the gift that is given to us, and that body decays then naturally.
And Lazarus would have been a very, very different story if he had been cremated.
Yes, it would have. That would have been an interesting icon to see that.
Eleni has a response to one of your answers. Specifically, I like your answers to Jean's question. You're absolutely right. All caps. A place of worship can only do good. Temple, synagogue, mosque, church, etc., etc. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Eleni. Appreciate that.
Blaze says, if I may ask one more question, do Orthodox Christians look at icons within the home or church as mystical ports of communication to the actual saints or angels, etc., as said by William Lane Craig?
William Lane Craig.
That's another one for the list.
Got my computer handy. William Lane Craig. The answer to that William Lane Craig, American philosopher. Uh-oh. The the American fathers. What do we call the American fathers of our country? The
Founding fathers?
founding fathers. Thank you. The founding fathers were not necessarily the best example of Christianity. Okay, I mean, uh, we've got Ben Franklin rewriting the Lord's Prayer. We've got Thomas Jefferson taking out all recorded evidence of the resurrection and creating his own Bible. We've got George Washington, who was admittedly not much of a churchgoer. So we've got to be very careful, that we don't place too much credibility on our founding fathers. They did wonderful things for us, but they are not necessarily models of Christianity for us. All right. So getting back to this idea of William Lane Craig, and I see him on the website here, and I'll have to look up that quote. But they are icons, according to Orthodox doctrine, are not portals of communication. They are not portals of communication. They are there to remember the image being depicted for what they did for Christianity, and that we may model their behavior. This is why we pick icons that speak to us. The Theotokos with the Christ child, because it speaks of the mother who bore our salvation, and then God, who became a child, who became human and grew up just like we did, as St. Paul says, except for sin. Or the event of the Evangelismo, which is my name saint, not saint, but the name event. Okay, or Saint Nicholas for the things that he did. But we are not using, the Orthodox Church does not use icons to set up some kind of seance or communication port. They are there as objects of remembrance that we can venerate now the image that we see there. Now, I'm going to have to read through there. So, Blaise, it sounds like he actually, Dr. Craig made a statement about icons from which you pulled that out. So I want to go ahead and take a look at that and see if I can find that, and then make a direct commentary to what it is that he said. And by the way, I appreciate Blaise coming back, because at the Sunday liturgy, he was there with some of our other viewers, YouTube attendees that I see, and they were watching liturgy, and we were kind of discussing and talking together. So, Blaise, I'm glad to see you here asking questions. Keep it up.
Trench has a disagreement. Specifically, he says, I disagree with you and other priests, with your and other priests' answers based on what other Orthodox priests and saints have said. Is a priest's view based on opinion over facts?
Well, what doesn't he agree with?
It didn't get any specific. He just said, I disagree with your and other priests' answer based on what other Orthodox priests and saints have said. But I guess to the point is, there is some variance. If you go from one Orthodox church to another Orthodox church, while the fundamentals remain consistent, you might get some difference of opinion. Where does that fall in?
So there should never be any variance on the dogmatic statements of the Orthodox Church. The Holy Trinity, God is one, Jesus Christ is the Son of God who came to save, to redeem the world and offer grace, and of the work of the Holy Spirit and of the Virgin Mary who gave birth to Christ our Lord. Okay, those are dogmatic statements. Any priest or bishop that says anything that is counter to that must be rejected. Beside that, okay, then there are, Demos, as you said, there are going to be then various interpretations of akrivia and economia. There are certain priests that stay very, very close to what the canons of the church say. Priests who, like myself, and I have to put myself in that category, who say and hold very strictly to what Jesus said, which was man made for the Sabbath or the Sabbath made for man? And if my priesthood is for to bring people to Christ, I don't do any saving. I'm by myself. If my work is to bring people to Christ, and canons then, and akrivia, the strict interpretation of the canons, then drives those people away from Christ, then I will be held accountable for that. So each priest has to make their own decisions and is given latitude by their bishops to make these day-to-day decisions. We see that in the military. When I was in the military, we see that in the police force. So there is law, and then there is interpretation then of law. But there can be no movement whatsoever or variability in those dogmatic statements that I mentioned. And the Orthodox Church would never allow for anything like that. Okay, but you're right. There's going to be some variance from priest to priest on certain expressions. So that's why this program certainly is not going to be enjoyed by every person out there, because their priest has a much stricter stance on things than I do. But that does not mean that priest is wrong. It doesn't mean that I am wrong. It is a very American ideal to want a binary answer. And it's a very European and Byzantine idea to understand that things can live in tension. And that's one, and you've heard me say this before, that's a big problem in America, because America is a very black and white place, is that the answer is this or this. And a Byzantine expression is, no, it's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that. So there is some movement there, and it doesn't mean wrong, right? It just means that we're at different variances from what is the mean line.
Well, we're getting a few more questions in, so I was going to ask if, Father, you're down for another 15 minutes or so.
So, yeah, why? Yeah, sure. Why not? Absolutely.
Perfect. Belg mentions that his question got skipped. Apparently, YouTube is having some issues tonight because apparently I'm not getting in all the questions on any of the devices I've opened. So if we did skip your question, we try to normally go in the order of the questions as they're asked, with certain exceptions, especially towards the end of the program. So if we did skip your question, please submit it. If we don't get to it tonight, we'll try to get to it next week. We do have a follow-up question about proper things to wear in church.
Okay.
Eleni says, and women can only wear skirts, right? I know that in monasteries, understandably, it's mandatory for ladies to be in skirts.
And thank you very much for that follow-on question, because it speaks directly to what I just said. The answer is women can wear pants. Okay? So you come to the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church in Rochester, New York, and you come and you're a woman and you wear pants, you're fine. All right? Right. So so that's the way. So, but that is counter to how I grew up. Okay, which is women never wore pants; they only wore skirts. That was what was presentable for a woman. And there are certainly priests out there today who would reject what I just said, which is that women cannot wear pants. They should wear a skirt. Okay, and there is. As far as I know, there is nothing that dictates now that women cannot wear pants. They're not wearing pants because they're pretending to be men, and I don't want to hear that discussion. Okay, it is a socially acceptable practice for women to wear pants, And so, in that sense, the Orthodox Church can accept that societal norm. There's no problem with that. If a woman is not comfortable wearing pants and she wants to wear a skirt, then God love her for that too. Then she will come to church and she'll wear a skirt. But she should not be critical of the woman next to her who is wearing pants, because that is that woman's prerogative. So if you come to church and you're wearing pants, that's fine. But again, they should be then respectable, meaning that the pants should be nice. They shouldn't be torn jeans, things like that. They should be respectable.
Trench has made a few very interesting comments, but I will state this one because it's in concordance with this question. Some people overdress to show off and mock others, which loses the point. People should
Holy Week.
yeah, Easter parade.
Yes.
People should dress humbly, and women should not dress to show off sex appeal with lipstick on the icons. I think, generally speaking, I'm going to add this for myself. I don't think anybody should be going to church showing off sex appeal unless it's quite natural.
I mean, this becomes problematic. St. Paul clearly says, "Let us not be a stumbling block to our brothers and sisters." All right. If a man is dressing provocatively and a young man is dressing provocatively and attracting the attention of women, he is a stumbling block to their spiritual growth. If a woman dresses provocatively and she is attracting the attention of other young men in church, then she is also a stumbling block of spiritual growth to then her brother. And the brother, obviously, in the Greek sense of the word, Okay, so there's nothing wrong with wanting to look nice, but when it crosses into provocativeness, this becomes a problem because you become a stumbling block. Okay, I don't want to argue this from the perspective of sex is bad and you shouldn't be sexy, and I'm not arguing from that perspective. What I'm arguing it from is that if you are causing now people, men or women, to shift their focus from the worship of God to the worship of your body, then we've got a problem with that. The church has a problem with that. And so that's why we say respectable dress is most appropriate. Okay?
Lenny says, I was raised both in the old calendar church and the new calendar church. I lean towards supporting the old calendar preaching and dates. Your opinion?
Again, that is certainly a personal preference. There is salvation in both churches, both the old calendar church and the what you would term the new calendar church. There is salvation in both. There's nothing wrong with that. However, you have to be comfortable where you worship. Now, I know that there's going to be some tension in every church. Just if you have people, you have tension, but you have to be comfortable that your spiritual growth in that community is spiritual growth. And so as long as you feel that, then that is the right place for you to be. Okay. And so I don't want to infer in any way that old calendar is bad and modern calendar is good. I don't want to make any kind of inference. We are all Orthodox. In fact, just like I mentioned in the Saint Vladimir's Dean, who talked about the coming together of the Oriental Orthodox, and he says, at our core, we are all Orthodox. That's what we have to remember. So don't feel in any way that I'm not right. And at any point in time, if you feel that church is not helping your spiritual growth, then you have to move on and you have to find some place that is. Sometimes, you can outgrow a church. The church is not growing anymore. It's become stagnant. You're not able to fulfill the ministries that you want in that particular church. You have to move on. But as long as you are content and you feel that your spiritual growth is positive, stay where you are.
Belge, I gotta point something out. For some reason, the only other comment I got from you is hope this one makes it. So apparently your comments are not showing up for some reason. It's not personal. Apparently YouTube is having some issues. My guess is there might be they might be a little extra censorious because of the election that's going on.
Oh,
So if for some reason your question doesn't come through, please go to our website. We have an email address right there that you can use to contact us. You can send us your question and we'll address it next week. I definitely want to address it. Trench actually mentioned something about the founding fathers, which I find interesting. Founding father John Adams said the Constitution works only for Christian people and no other country. So non-Christians in power is un-American.
that's that's an interesting thought. I right off the bat, I don't. I mean, I have to explore that, but I'm curious about that. I mean, you know, uh, Greece has had for the first time a an atheist as prime minister, and I don't see Greece any worse off. I think Greece was was worse off under under an Orthodox Christian. I mean, we certainly had our problems. I obviously because of my belief system, I would I would certainly prefer a somebody of Christian values, but I I don't see why a Jewish person or a Muslim could not be president of the United States. I guess I don't. I would that would be an interesting discussion to have. You know, is our Constitution limited to only Christians? And again, remember the problematic with John F. Kennedy was that was the American people thought that his decision making would be influenced by his Catholic faith. And the answer to that question is, of course. I mean, if I were president, my Orthodox faith would certainly then determine the decisions that I made. So, and certainly anybody else, you know, the people of the book, who we would say are the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians, I don't see why they could not rule this country. But again, interesting discussion, I think, to continue to have.
But I think that almost like the political party discussion we had earlier, really, when it really comes down to it, I think wouldn't the question be based on the individual that's running or trying to gain power rather than party? Like,
Oh yeah, and you're absolutely right, because at the end of the day, I mean, you know, it is the individual that makes the decision. I mean, Harry Truman made single-handed made probably the most difficult decision that any man has ever had to make, single-handedly, to decide whether or not to drop the atom bomb on, on Japan. I mean, so
two of them.
two of them, yeah, right. So, this was, I mean, I know that he had discussion, but at the end of the day, I mean, that's what was on Truman's desk, right? The buck stops here. This one man made a decision about what would happen to thousands of people instantly destroyed. So, certainly, we want somebody that would be guided by a divine principle.
Lenny says, and this was something we explored a little bit right before Halloween, but it's worth checking out because there's a different angle here. Lenny was recently reading a biography on Mother Teresa, where they had performed an exorcism on her because she was plagued with ill luck at one point in her life. Do you believe in exorcisms? And I'm going to add the idea that you should get an exorcism performed on you for bad luck. That is strange. What are your thoughts on this?
So, yes, 100% the Orthodox Church believes in exorcisms. And in fact, the exorcism prayers are read in the back of the church at the beginning of every Orthodox baptism. Okay, there's 3 exorcism prayers that we read. So, I mean, yes, of course we believe in exorcism. And in fact, at the seminary, we are introduced to the one priest who has the permission from the archdiocese to perform exorcisms. We are told at the seminary, yes, we do believe that you can be possessed by demons. We believe that happens in rare cases, and you, as a parish priest, are never to perform exorcisms because you do not have singly the power to overcome Satan. And so there is a specific person who is identified by the archdiocese, and so we had a chance to talk with him, and he related some of his experiences to us, and it is very, very scary stuff. Very, very scary stuff. So we certainly, absolutely, 100% believe in the possession of people by demons, and we also believe that Satan does have a lot of power that is unassailable by a single mortal individual, and that only through training and only through the help of God can that be overcome. And then, so do we believe in exorcism? And the other one about the bad luck. The Orthodox Church does allow in the priest service book a prayer for Vaskania, which is the curse. So there is a prayer in there for the removal of what we would colloquially express as the mati, all right, the evil eye. And so there are prayers in there for that removal. But that is not a prayer of possession. That is not an exorcism prayer. That is strictly a prayer now that asks God now to remove those evil forces that surround that individual, which we're calling here bad luck.
Well, we have some good luck. Belge's question came through.
Okay.
It was a question about whether or not church attendance is mandatory, and if it is, what the consequences of not attending would be.
Okay. So the Orthodox Church does not have the principle of obligation that the Catholic Church does. We don't have that policy of, like, for example, I had a very close friend of mine who was Catholic, and he asked his priest if coming to my church would meet the obligation of coming to church. And he told him yes, it would. And so I learned about that Catholic idea of obligation. The Orthodox Church does not have that idea of obligation. We do agree, the church agrees with the Catholic Church that there is no salvation outside the church. Okay, we 100% believe that. What do I mean by that? Meaning that you cannot be saved by yourself. You are saved in the body of Christ, and the body of Christ has people in it. Those people gather together at a church, and that church is koinonia. It is communion. It is community. You are saved through your community. So, do you have to come to church to be saved? The answer from the Orthodox Church would be yes, you do. Okay, do we have a policy like you have to come 4 times a week, or 4 times a month, or else you're going to hell? No, of course not. We don't have anything like that. We have no concept of how much you need to come to church. But we do believe that not being part of a church community will place you outside of salvation. There is no personal salvation by yourself. We believe in that Protestant idea that is Christ. Have you asked Christ to be your personal savior? But beyond that, there is also the part that you must be part of a community. So So that's why, in answer to your question, I would say yes, you do need to come to church to be part of that church community. You just have to find the community for you, because you have to go out. You have to do the second commandment of Christ, which is love thy neighbor as I have loved you.
And in a way, because of COVID, the churches are putting out live streams and stuff, allows you to have at least a small experience from home until everything opens up.
Yes, we're doing right under COVID. We're doing the best. We're doing the best that we can, but there will come a time, and I'm the eternal optimist. There will come a time shortly when it's time to come back to church.
Hopefully, very soon. So we're gonna do a quick lightning round because we have a lot of people coming in that haven't been in our stream as much. So I want to address a few other questions. Oliver has a question: is LGBT marriage acceptable in church? Something we've addressed a few times, but your quick answer, Father.
No, at this point, we cannot allow any marriages other than a man to a woman.
Juan Gonzalez, I'm new to Christian Orthodoxy. I bought the Orthodoxy Study Bible. Any tips on any tips for newcomers? And they also add, by the way, love your Orthodoxy 101 videos, very helpful. Juan, there are a lot more coming out as soon as I get back into town. But as for the question,
yes, see now that Demos has been gone, Demos has to come back to church, or he's outside of salvation.
Oh no!
Oh yes,
I'm being condemned publicly and internationally. Thanks.
And internationally, look at that. Okay, some tips. Some tips would be try not to read the Bible like you would read a novel. It just never works. Meaning, you start from Genesis and then you work your way through. It's so difficult. So what I would encourage you to do is there is a and it's on our website. And I just Demos, we have the Bible challenge, correct?
Yes.
And again, I don't know how good you are at being able to show that, but I think it's Juan, right? Correct?
Yes. I can't switch the screens at the moment, but I can explain where it is on the website, which is annunciationrochester.org. And the Bible challenge is the very first item under education.
Right. And under there, you'll see Bible challenge. When you open that up, it will have a sheet on there, an outline for reading the Bible in a year. And it's done very, very well. In fact, the church right next to us is Asbury United Methodist Church. And so we partnered with actually I partnered with them to use their Bible outline. And so our two parishes were working together with that. It's a beautifully done outline, and it kind of helps guide you through it so that you have an order. And then there's also some study guides that go together with that. Now,
yeah, I lost your audio there for a second.
Gotcha.
There we are.
Now, what book would you start with? Okay. I would say the books to start with would be Genesis. Get yourself. You can kind of breeze through the names and all that, but I would start with Genesis because that really lays the foundation then for what happens. After that, I would read then Job and Hosea, which are wonderful examples of God working in our lives. And then from there, I would go then to the Gospel of John, then to Romans, and then to the Synoptic Gospels, which would be Matthew, Mark, and Luke, in what order. So I would say Genesis, Hosea, Job, Gospel of John, Romans, and then the 3 synoptic gospels. But take a look at that outline, and I think that that outline, like I said, would, in fact, I used it because I had really never read the Bible all the way through, and that outline is really helping me. I'm hoping that I can close this within the last 2 months.
We're getting a lot more questions, including a treatise on John Adams by Trench. We'll take a look at those and see what we can answer next week. But for now, we have one last question from Blaze, who says, "I live in a very rural area of Oklahoma, not within 80 miles of an Orthodox church."
Okay.
Being the true church, as I am slowly discovering, how can I hope to join if I can't attend?
Well, one way is what you've been, Blaze. What you've already been doing is watch us or other Orthodox churches online, live stream, and becoming familiar with how we practice. And then through this questions and answers, you see something, and then you say, like the CIA, see something, say something, right? And then so ask me a question. Hey, I saw this. What does this mean? And then at some point in time, and I'm assuming that you are, I'm assuming that you're old enough, you have a car and everything like that. Find an Orthodox church that you'd like to go to. Text that to me or Demos. I will then set up with that priest. If it's a GOA parish, or it doesn't matter, you tell me the name of the church, and I will call that priest up and say, hey, I have this gentleman that's going to be coming, and he's really interested in the Orthodox Church, and he's been watching some videos, and if you can, I'd like you to kind of help him along and get introduced to it that way. So I know that 80 miles, and you're not going to be doing that, not even, let's say, even once a month, but if you could certainly put it on your books for an upcoming month, maybe to go see one of our services during Christmas. Like I said, I will provide you that introductory phone call so that priest can be expecting you and kind of help you through that, so you're not going in there blind.
All right. Once again, thank you everybody for the questions. And we'll be trying to catch up on some of the extra ones at the beginning of next week. Before we move on for the evening, though, Father, you had a book you wanted me to showcase.
Yes. So since I can't see it, just let me know when you have it up there.
It's up.
Okay. This book is called The Heavenly Banquet, an Explanation of the Orthodox Liturgy, and it's by Father Emmanuel Hadzidakis, I believe. This is a wonderful book for showing the connection of every step of the Orthodox liturgy as connected to the gospel. It's connected to the Bible. Because there was a great question that came up in one of the previous sessions about, is our liturgy biblically based? This book answers that question at every step along the way. So not only do you know why we do the liturgy, but you also have that biblical connection of each one of the steps of the Orthodox liturgy. It's very well done. There's one or two things in there that I might, but as a whole, it is a wonderful book to connect our liturgy to the gospel.
And in reference to this coming Sunday service.
So it looks like, unfortunately, and I haven't sent out the email yet, so some of my parishioners are going to be surprised to hear this because it's the first time they're hearing this. I have one more week of quarantine that I need to do. The test results did not come back, so I have to remain in quarantine. And unfortunately, the priest that was going to cover for me still has not fully recovered from his bronchitis, and because that is a coughing illness, I asked that he not serve, and he agreed with me. And unfortunately, I don't have anybody else that is currently available. Father Jerry is not available right now, so I'm going to have to sadly close the church for one more Sunday. But I'll be back in next Sunday. Everything's going back to normal. We'll be all cool for Christmas and everything like that. But unfortunately, this next Sunday is this Sunday is not going to work out. But Demos, I think you've got something already prepared, right?
Yes, sir. We're gonna have the same thing as last week. We're gonna have a representation of a previous divine liturgy with brand new recorded gospel readings, epistles, and a brand new virtual Sunday school as well. So please tune in for that. We'll still be serving in our own way.
And again, I really appreciated this. Was interesting because it gave me the opportunity to answer a couple of questions that came up in the chat portion. Blaze was one of those people. Medieval Guitar came in, so I was able, which I never have the opportunity to do, is to make some commentary actually during the liturgy. Other than the gospel, I can't do anything when the gospel is being read. So just know that in advance.
So in a way, it's a chance, and if you're able to do it this Sunday, it's a chance for people to actually directly interact with you, where they don't have to wait as much.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, with that being said, once again, thank you, everybody. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll be back next week.
I'm looking forward to it. So thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next.